So yeah, you had how's the Christmas? Good Christmas? Coal again? Nobody uses coal anymore. Coal, yeah, later. Hey, welcome to season 3, episode 48 of Niagara 411 Live with Sterry. We are fueled by Gales Gas Bars. We are supported by Verge Insurance Brokers Limited. We are powered by WeeStreem. We are housed in this lovely location of Fiddler's Poorhouse. And we've got kind of a special show for you today because, of course, this is our last program, 2022. And boy, there's been a lot go on this year. So we're going to do a little bit of a That Was the Year That Was on Niagara 411 Live with Sterry. So come on in, and we'll walk you through the year of our programs that have been generously supported by you and all of the other folks that are contributors to Niagara 411 and elsewhere throughout the community. And for that, we thank you. The viewership has skyrocketed over the last season, and which is great because we can tell our sponsors, Gales, Verge, and WeeStream, and Fiddler's Poorhouse that, hey, we delivered in 2022 some great value for their dollar. Now, what we're going to do is start with, well, probably the worst news we could have awoken to this morning. And it started last night. You probably got the alert on your phone. Anyway, we'll start there, and it's a bit of a, not a bit of a very big dark moment with which we're going to wrap up our year, but we'll lighten it up as the day goes on, and I hope you can stick with us. We'll be back in about 30 seconds. Hey, and welcome in once again to Season 3, Episode 48 of Niagara 411 Live with Sterry. And I want to start right here because it wouldn't be appropriate to start anywhere else. We lost one of Ontario's finest last night. The members of the OPP West Region grieve with the family and friends of Provincial Constable Greg Percella, and there was one of his comrades, one of the officers and spokesmen for the OPP, that made a statement a little bit earlier, and this is what he said.
Hi everybody, it's Constable Ed Sanchup with the Haldimand County OPP. I just want to provide you some updated information surrounding the ongoing investigation into one of the Haldimand County officers being shot earlier this afternoon. The Ontario Police is mourning the death of a member of the Haldimand County Attachment killed in the line of duty. On December 27th, just shortly after 2:30 p.m., an officer had been responding to a vehicle in a ditch at the intersection of Indian Line and Concession 14, west of Hagersville in Walpole. When the officer arrived, he was shot. Provincial Constable Greg Percella was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced deceased. Constable Percella was 20 years old, and I've been with an OPP for just over a year. 2 individuals were seen fleeing from the scene, and following a major search of the area, 2 people have been taken into custody. No further details will be released at this time regarding the suspects. An alert-ready message had been sent to residents in the area warning them to shelter in place. That alert and the need to shelter in place has now been canceled. The OPP is assisting the members, family, and colleagues as they deal with this tragedy, and our thoughts and prayers are going out to all family members and friends affected. To all our OPP colleagues, call takers and dispatchers, first responders, and to our civilians that were on scene. The family is asking for privacy at this difficult time, but we're asking anyone that may have information surrounding this particular investigation So please give the OPP a call at 1-888-310-1122, or should you wish to be anonymous, to contact Crime Stoppers to be eligible for a crash reward. I'm at a loss for words, folks. Our hearts are all broken tonight across the province of Ontario with the OPP, and our sincere thoughts and condolences are going out to everyone who's been affected by this tragedy. To Constable Purcella's family, we've got our deepest and sincerest condolences on behalf of every member of our organization. And if I have any further updated information, I'll definitely let you know. Please make sure you take care of you and stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Fellow officer barely holding back tears, and understandably so. That's one of the...
Hi, everybody. It's Constable Ed Sanchuk with the...
That's one of the many pictures that we have seen posted of Constable Purcella just finished his probation as an Ontario provincial police officer, which lasts a year. Comes upon a truck that appears to be in the ditch, stopping ostensibly to help the people that are involved, and is shot and killed. And we wonder why occasionally police officers seem aggressive when dealing with situations. That's a prime example of why right there. Constable Greg Purcella, we don't know what to say other than thank you for your service, and who knows what he could have accomplished as a law enforcement officer in Ontario and elsewhere, depending on where his career led him. Condolences to friends and family, and to the Ontario Provincial Police Force. Okay, Kevin, the year that was, Niagara 411 Live. This is the time of year when we reflect. That's a very polite word for it, I guess. Look back, or look in the rearview mirror, however you want to say it. So what we decided that we would do today, oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Jack of WeeStreem, who has had a heck of a year as well, because, I mean, 2022, excuse me, was probably the year that things finally, if you want to say, ramped back up to at least almost full speed. Wouldn't you say that, Kevin? I mean, I know it was a bit of a slow start, but 2022 was when the world, the post-COVID world, sort of geared back up.
It did, Lee, and we had our best revenue year ever for WeeStreem, which was so nice. It was so heartwarming. I'll be honestly, and I was very honest on this program, that it was very difficult for myself as an entrepreneur and a father of two young children during COVID, being forced to stay home, unable to work, unable to grow our business that was trending in the right direction. And everybody said, don't worry, when COVID subsides, you'll be doing better than ever. And you know what? They were absolutely right. So 2022 was a banner year for us. And if anybody in the community needs a live streaming or hybrid meeting needs, reach out to WeeStream. It's exactly what we do, and we have a proven track record of it.
And I suppose one of those things that, what we're doing today is a retrospective, as I mentioned. The year that was Niagara 411 Live, those stories that we covered, not necessarily in the very date they happened, but in the order in which we walked through the year here at Niagara 411 Live with Lee Sterry. And you were talking about children, et cetera, Kevin. And I suppose the underlying theme, in spite of the fact that we're in the so-called post-COVID era, is the fact that there was still that underlying uncertainty about what was going to be happening with our families, with regard to our children going back to school, including possible strikes and contract negotiations, and that whole trying to ramp up again for families in Ontario, and to put too fine a point on it across the country, but Niagara and Ontario was families always had sort of one foot on a banana peel and one foot out the door because you didn't really know what the hell you were going to be doing tomorrow. And it looks like, thank goodness, we might be coming out the other side of that. So let's start, let's rewind a little bit here, Kevin, and go back to January. Actually, the very last day of December 2021, and this story rolled us through months of conjecture and searches and mystery, and that was the disappearance on New Year's Eve 2021 of St. Catharines resident and ex-Canadian Forces officer, service person Katrina Blagden. We talked to her family numerous times over that year. She was last seen at the sub shop over on 4th Avenue on December 31st, 2021, and never heard of or seen again till much, much later in the year, and that was in a tragic sense. We spoke mainly with Katrina's sister Kelly. That was Katrina. There we go. And this is just a piece of.
Now, you're in St. Catharines at the moment, are you, Kelly?
At the moment, I've actually returned home to Ottawa. I have 2 children in a home here that I have to take care of, and
Of course.
I'm heading back to St. Catharines to join my parents and my stepsister and my other sister, Shelley, tomorrow.
Okay. So your parents and Shelley are here at the moment?
Yes, and my stepsister, Katie.
Okay. So let's go back to December the 31st. And we had been, and other media had been reporting that, as I mentioned, Trina's last known location was Van Sickle, or in the area of Van Sickle and Martindale Road. We know that now not to be the case. Where did that original story come from?
When no one in the family was able to get a hold of Trina on New Year's Day, there were multiple phone calls issued back and forth. At that time, the information was supplied to us from her live-in boyfriend.
Oh, it was her boyfriend that said. So, how did he pinpoint Van Sickle and Martindale Road?
Because that's where her address is, and at that time we were informed that she most likely left on foot, as they went to bed together and she was not seen leaving.
Okay.
And he woke up at 8 a.m. and she was missing.
She was gone from the house.
Completely gone.
And they live in that area. Okay.
Absolutely.
Would it have been a normal kind of thing for her to get up and go for a walk at that time in the morning?
It could be. There were other factors, though, that led us to determine that we could not rely on any information other than physical sightings in talking with the police, so that we are not insinuating by any means, but we do believe that there is some untold story about December 31st, and we want it. We want our sister.
Understood. So let's flash forward now to the new information about the sub shop on 4th Avenue and the Jeep, which we just found out about. How did you determine, or how was it determined, that that was her actual last sighting, if you will?
From the police detective in charge, she did give us the update that our sister was videoed there along with her partner inside the Jeep for supper that evening.
Okay.
And that because there was no further information with regards to her leaving on foot and nothing has been picked up, they were going to go with that was the last confirmed sighting.
Now this, to be clear, this Jeep is Katrina's, correct?
Correct.
Where is it now?
It is currently being driven by her live-in partner. That is a different story.
Okay.
that I cannot comment on.
Okay, fine, whatever, yeah.
But as of the night of the 31st, we would like to know if anybody saw that Jeep anywhere in St. Catharines, because ideally it didn't leave the driveway that evening.
But it was seen sorry to repeat, I'm just trying to be clear, but Katrina and her partner were in possession of that Jeep at the sub shop on 4th Avenue sometime between 6 and 6:30 on December 31st.
Correct.
Okay.
And
And the rest, as they say, is history. Everything is history. We talked with Kelly and other members of her family numerous times over the course of this past year, as the entire community, the entire region, really engaged in this story. Many people showed up to help search efforts. When the Blagdens came back down from Ottawa almost every weekend or stayed for weeks at a time to continue to search for Katrina, and to no avail until much later in the year, when her body was found in a catchment area in I guess 12 Mile Creek on into Port Colborne area, I believe, Kevin is.
Yeah, into the Port Dalhousie area.
Yeah, Port Colborne. I'm sorry, Port Dalhousie. That's what I meant. And the only headline that we got from the investigators was "no foul play expected," and then it went silent. And I remember our comment at the time was, okay, we can surmise all we like, we can conjecture and guess and whatnot, but there were so many people engaged in emotionally as well as physically in this story that I think it was a universal feeling from people that I chatted with, including us here on the show, that we kind of felt deserving of a more detailed explanation. But we're not going to get it. And so rest in peace, Katrina Blagden. But that was one of the huge stories that we covered here in detail, and thank you for helping us do that on Niagara 411 Live. Let's move forward to one of the most contentious stories of the entire year, and to some degree it continues to this day, and I don't think we have seen the last of it. The so-called Freedom Convoy that was headed to Ottawa, Ontario. This was, I guess, if you're gonna, you could really get complicated with this, Kevin. But I guess to summarize it, it's the anti-vaxxer, anti-regulation kind of force. It grew out of mandatory COVID shots and regulations around travel and all of these other things, and this grew out of that initiative, and started out west. It was conceived of in Alberta, and there were supposed to be thousands and thousands and thousands of trucks, etc., converge on Ottawa, and there were quite a number. Did we ever determine, Kev, how many trucks and or people were actually there? I don't think so. I don't think we have an actual number, but it created an amazing backlash on so many different levels because of a number of reasons. Of course, we had frontline people, as you saw there, nurses and doctors, and we had first responders of all kinds, and there was great debate as to what is this for? What does freedom mean? Does it mean, is it just about whether you need a shot to get on an airplane? Or is it deeper? I think some people tried to make it deeper, but it became a gridlock of psychology and perspectives in the nation's capital. There was great debate in as far as how the Ottawa police and the supporting forces dealt with this situation. There were hearings, as you remember, continuing throughout the summer and on into fall about how the situation was handled, and there isn't a lot of positive feedback about how the local constabulary and politicians handled the carnage that happened. And I say carnage because it was just almost like lockdown. People that lived and worked in the area of Ottawa were virtually locked in place over that period of time. And also, Kevin, at that time, and you at home, it was unclear as to the scope of this, because it's very easy to get a camera shot of 3 or 4 trucks and it looks like hundreds. It's very easy to take a shot of 15 people and it looks like thousands. So what we continued to try to do was find out what the reality of some of this situation was. And one of the regular contributors to this program is a professional truck driver. He's been driving truck for well over 3 decades, winner of many safe driving awards, and a personal friend of mine and a close contributor to the program. His name is Dave Benison, and we thought we'd get in touch with him, and he's sitting in his truck when we did this interview back in February, I believe. And this was how he saw the so-called Freedom Convoy earlier this year.
We both understood at the time that the vaccination mandate was not going to be enforced for back and forth truckers. Then it was right after this show, as a matter of fact, that it was then announced that announcement was in error, and yes, truckers that work internationally will have to be vaccination mandated, and so that changed the whole dynamic. And then this sort of rally for freedom thing got underway. So you work for Challenger, a big, successful trucking company located here in southwestern Ontario. Guelph area is the head office, but you drive for them every day. And so
I cross the border every day, usually sometimes 2 times a day, Monday to Friday.
All right, so let's play a little bit of word association here, and you can give me your impression of this. And we realize it's just your opinion from your experience, but you've been driving for almost 2 decades, so I figure you're a pretty good spokesman for this.
28 years.
28 years, almost 3 decades. Okay.
Almost 3.5 million safe driving miles.
Awesome, and good for you. And I know you've been recognized for that, so so kudos to you for that. So a better spokesman we couldn't have. Let me just ask you.
Well, I haven't said anything yet. You might change your mind after what I got to say.
No. Well, no, it doesn't matter what my mind is. I haven't been driving trucks for 30 years. So, what do you think about this whole? First of all, let me ask you that. The big umbrella question: what is your personal impression of this convoy concept, this protest thing?
Yeah. Well, this is my personal opinion. This doesn't reflect on my company. They have protocols and stuff they have to follow, basically because they're a federally regulated company across Canada. So they're represented by the Canadian Trucking Association and the OTA. Who speaks on behalf of them. So whatever they're saying, that's their involvement. So I'm speaking as myself, as a driver, a guy that's been in it, and I can't say I've seen it all, but I've seen most of it at one point or another. And at first, to me, the concept and the idea, it's a great idea, but I just don't like the way it's being handled. And there's a lot of, and this is on both sides, there's a lot of misinformation on both sides. And I just wish when you're going to do this, do it honestly, give honest numbers, give, what exactly is going on. And that's what sort of I got, a little upset and tongue in cheek, because I see all these numbers about what's happening. And a lot of the stuff that you're seeing happening is day-to-day stuff that happens every day. So we see these big lines of trucks, and I talked to this a couple times. there's thousands of trucks that go through the GTA every single hour, and you know, it doesn't take much to make it look like there's a big convoy, and so that's what, you know what I mean. It was skewing the numbers and stuff. And hey, look, if you can get 100, 200, 500, 1,000 truck drivers to actually agree on something and go together, then more power to it. But when you're starting to skew the numbers and saying that there's 60,000, you know, trucks coming, and there's thousands of trucks coming up from the U.S. and that's where I start to, you know what I mean. But that's actually not the reality of what's going on. And then when I start seeing, you know, there again, I'm looking at you know, different sites and stuff, and I see like, you know, threats against the government and stuff, and that's where I sort of have to draw the line with in my opinion, is, you know, it's fine to do it, but do it. There's proper channels to go about. You know, if people don't like Trudeau and that, hey, I totally understand, but there's proper channels to go about it. And this here, for now, might look like a good thing, but 6 months down the line or 3 months down the line, there could be repercussions to this that not only affect us as drivers on both sides of the border, but the general public as well.
Yeah,
Kevin, I don't think we can actually deny that was a fairly accurate prophecy. There have been repercussions. There has been a massive inquiry launched because our Prime Minister invoked the Emergencies Act? Oh, I'm going to get this wrong and then I'll be vilified for this on social media. What was the name of the act? To end it. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. I just can't remember
Was it war measures?
No, that was his father.
Oh, right.
That did that.
The FLQ is
back in
seeping
the FLQ days. Yeah. Let's not get it confused with that. I think it was the Emergency Measures Act or something like that was, and of course, as you know, there was all of these hearings, et cetera, involved, and so many people testified, including Chief of Police, Chief of the RCMP, and all the rest of it, and there was a lot of he said, she said, and misdirection, et cetera. And basically, at the end of the day, if you want to summarize it, we could have done a better job of dealing with this situation had the plan been maybe a little bit clearer and the execution a little bit more effective. And the freedom type movement continues today. We talked about something last week, and I was called just about everything but a human being on some comments that came up, and that's okay. But I want to take this. I want to take this opportunity, Kevin. And I know you'll have something to add because you engaged a little bit. I did not. There were some interesting things said about me and about this program after last week's show. Now, and that's okay. My skin is old enough and thick enough that I can take it. That's okay. I didn't lose any sleep over it. Here's the thing, though. If we take anything from 2022 of Niagara 411 Live into 2023, I would like you to take this with you. If you have a dissenting opinion or more information or clarification of anything it is that we are talking about, see this thing right down here and along here. You can talk to us that fast. If I've said something that feels wrong to you, if we're presenting a side of a story that feels a little off kilter and you think you should clarify it for us, if you don't think I've done enough research, if you don't think we're giving a balanced view of what's going on, hey, don't wait till I get home and rain on my parade. Rain on my parade right here. Come on, talk to us. That's what we're here for. This is a live, interactive, streaming, television style talk show. And the key here is interactive. You don't have to sit at home and be frustrated and spend another hour trying to teach me about Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, of which I'm very familiar, by the way. Come on and talk to us. Don't hide in the shadows. If you think we're off base, come on down. We'd love to talk to you. Kevin?
Along those lines, Lee, I want to keep moving with our retrospective of 2022, but we did just have somebody hop into the green room. So we got a Robert George in there, and I'll just give him a couple minutes here to turn his camera on and unmute himself, see if he wants to come on the program.
Do we know what Robert would like to talk about, or is he going to tell us?
I have no idea. And sometimes people, despite what you just said, sometimes people click on that by mistake. So you know what? Let's move along. I'll see if I can set them up. But as we move through the year that was, I think a lot of us were shocked at
Ukraine.
the heels. Exactly. And all of a sudden, war on Ukraine. And
Let's move a little forward to March, and the Ukraine. Well, I guess we're calling it a war now. Putin used the word war for the first time in the last few weeks, but it became obviously the story du jour. And we spoke with a fabulous young woman who was the principal of a school at a city in Ukraine. Her name was Tatiana Sunak, and she had returned recently from Ukraine, and this was our conversation with her.
Students, they needed Canadian administrator, so that's why they offered me a job. My contract was for 2.5 years, almost 30 years. And the change that I thought, it was mind-blowing. And I even thought about moving permanently to Ukraine.
Really?
Because there's so much potential there. There's so much growth, and people are so different. And I really loved it, and it breaks my heart even more, because Ukraine that I left was different. The Ukraine that I saw these days, this year, is completely different.
How are they different? How did you see the people as different, and how are they different now?
They are more free, they are more educated. Almost everybody speaks English, even little kids. They care about their country, and this is something that I haven't seen before. Even the people who are business people, they really want their country to be successful. Not personally them, but students and their country. And this is not what, that's something that I haven't seen when I was there in 90s.
What happened that, I know what happened, but I'm trying to think of the chronology of how it happened. You said you were supposed to be there in a 2.5-year contract. You were there for about a year, and now you're back here. Were you ordered to come back? Did they close the school? How did that happen?
Well, when they start bombing,
yeah.
Then I decided that I have to get out. I know that the Canadian consulate was warning us and was asking all Canadians to leave, but I didn't believe that it's actually going to happen, and that's why I waited until last minute. We had a number of Canadian teachers who left earlier. And you know what? And they did they made a good choice. I did not, because I was there for my students, for my teachers. I knew that they needed me. They needed that additional support. And but again, when I heard first explosions, I knew that I have to get out, because my family here was going nuts. They were going crazy, and if I did not leave, then probably, I don't know, my mom probably would have ended up in the hospital, and my daughter as well. So
So you had your mom here, and was your daughter here in Canada while you were in Ukraine?
yes, yeah.
Oh my gosh! So was her grandma looking after her? Her nana?
Well, my daughter is grown up.
Oh, she's
she
grown now.
already
Okay.
has. Yes.
All right,
She
so that's
already
good.
has her own kids. So.
Okay. So that's a good thing, but that's still different. What did it feel like when you had to step on that plane and leave?
Well, I didn't make it because airports were closed, so I had to find a ride to west part of Ukraine from Kiev.
Oh my!
And then and so luckily my best friend's student was driving from Kiev to west part of Ukraine, so they picked me up. They drove me all the way to the west part, and then one of our relatives took me to the border as far as he could, and then I had to walk 23 kilometers to the border to get to the border, and then
That's the border with Poland, correct?
it's Poland, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And then I had to wait another, so it was another 18, 19 hours in line. Not even, you cannot even call it line. It was a crowd that was trying to squeeze through the gates to get through the border.
One woman's story of somebody that's very, very involved in Ukraine, and we spoke with Tatiana a couple of times over the course of the year, and she always gave us wonderful personal perspective on what it's like to really be on the ground in a place like that. Walk 23 miles. I mean, this is stuff we haven't heard since World War II and things like that. You don't think that this goes on today, but it does. Kevin, do we have someone waiting, or are we moving on? What is the story right
no,
now?
he came in and then dropped off.
And then
but that
exited? Okay.
Yeah, that just makes room for somebody else. If you're watching the show and you want to share a story, reminisce about 2022, or just maybe shine a light on a good Samaritan there over the last week. There were so many of them,
Yeah.
and Niagara 411 was just an absolute integral resource for all of us in Niagara throughout that blizzard. Would you not agree? I mean, sorry, but traditional media just couldn't handle what Nick and Niagara 411 was able to get out to the community, as all of us just flooded Niagara 411 looking for the most up-to-date information
Yeah.
across the region.
And I'm going to address that in a second, but I don't want to waste any more time. Not waste time. I don't want to spend any more time before I acknowledge our sponsors. We've been on now for about 40 minutes, and I want to once again, we are doing the year that was Facebook, or the year that was Niagara 411 Live with Lee Sterry on Facebook with Niagara 411. And I do want to acknowledge the support that we've had through that entire year and even before is Gales Gas Bars Limited. Over the course of the last year, it was announced that A, they are a living wage employer, B, they are Rainbow registered here in Niagara, they are community leaders, they do so much to support our communities, and we are so pleased that they support this program, as well as our title sponsor, Gales Gas Bars, Jessica Friesen, and your crew. Thank you so much. Blake Shirk, Mark Shirk, and the whole gang at Verge Insurance Group, Verge Insurance Brokers, they have also been telling the line with us here in 2022 as we walk through this retrospective. Nick at Niagara 411, of course, a yeoman's effort, especially in these times when we have these events like the storm of the last number of days. Things get very, very crazy at the home of Niagara 411. Exemplary job of covering that. And of course, our home away from homes here at Fiddler's Poorhouse, Dave McParian and your staff have treated us like gold in 2022, and we appreciate that, and we look forward to continuing this this adventure together. WeeStreem, of course, Kevin Jack is the co-founder, along with his partner Brandon Scram, Canada's premier streaming company, and if there is an event or a series of, be it sporting, be it wedding, be it meetings, be it council meetings, be it parades, whatever, if there's something that ribbon cutting ceremonies, that's something we found out, Kevin. I'll never forget when there was a ribbon, you might not even know where I'm going here, but there was a ribbon cutting ceremony of the Rainbow Sidewalk in Niagara Falls. Mayor Jim Diodati was there to do the honors, and there were a few people on hand, but you actually streamed the event, and there might have been maybe 20 people at the event, but thousands saw the event because of WeeStreem.
Yeah, and that's exactly one of the reasons why you would live stream an event. You know, it was in the height of COVID, so in person was really just kind of said, don't show up. But online, we had hundreds of people watching live, and that has generated tens of thousands of views for the city of Niagara Falls. So think about it. Your options are not to stream it. You impact 20 people that are there in person, or you stream it, and all of a sudden it's tens of thousands of people right across Ontario that get to see this great initiative by the city of Niagara Falls, because everything that is live streamed is automatically archived. So just stream it. Like I always say, Lee, to any of my municipal partners or even corporate people, if you're standing behind a podium, it should be streamed.
That is a great line. It should be it should be engraved somewhere. Well, maybe you do have it engraved somewhere. I don't know. But the thing is, communication protocols have changed so much. The days of, let's say, politicians. The days of politicians, and yeah, it's okay to go knock on a door and say hi, and it's a nice, warm and fuzzy thing to do sometimes, unless you get bitten, as City Councillor St. Catharines did. But that's another story altogether. The thing is, if you want to reach the constituents that you want to vote for you, they're not going to come to you. You have to go to them. And in these days of technology being what it is, digital communications being what it is, people don't leave home. You want to come to a debate? Oh, no, I'd rather go down into the den and click and watch the debate there. Well, okay. And there are even opportunities for it to be interactive. If you've got these Zoom things, Kevin, I know that you've done some weddings where you've actually had people live and interactive with something like 20 people on the screen at a COVID wedding that ordinarily they would have never been able to see each other.
You're almost anything that you can dream up as far as a hybrid event, we can absolutely coordinate for you. Lee, you're absolutely right. I find it a little strange that we still stick to the old mandate of, well, if we want to get our word out, I'm going to put out a press release, and hopefully the paper shows up. Well, as you know, and Lee, I mean, we have a history there. When you started in radio, you had probably, 15 people working in a newsroom.
Oh, God, yeah.
And now our old place down the road, I think there's two.
You're lucky if you had two.
I think there's two.
Yeah.
So they're not coming to your event, so just be your own media.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people. Be your own media. Why are you relying on somebody else to tell your story? Hire WeeStream. We'll come tell your story for you. Then you control the media. And you have the files. You have the footage. You can do with it whatever you want.
And coming back again to this program, that's why it was created, so that you can come to where we are. Because we're not going to come to you. There's two of us. We're not going to come to 12 municipalities and all over the region.
We could be anywhere in the world. But
you
of course,
come here, to give you an example, last week's show, we checked out, last week's program had more than 75,000 views. If you throw any event, I can guarantee you're not going to get 75,000 people from Niagara to come to it. That's a small city. So anyway,
no, and Lee, we've been leveraging that audience to try and promote things in Niagara, and in some cases trying to help families that are in need. We began by saying we're almost coming up on the year anniversary of the disappearance of Katrina Blagden.
Yes,
and we also still don't know the whereabouts of Nicholas Adamson.
And thank you for segueing us into this. It was the night of March the 16th. Into the early morning hours, of March 17th, of course, which we all know to be the date of St. Patrick's Day. However, it wasn't really a St. Patrick's Day celebration. It just happened that Nicholas went missing after being out with his friends, having had a few drinks, went outside to ostensibly make a telephone call, called his mom, as if I'm remembering the sequence of events properly, then tried to go back into the building, and because he was inebriated and it was late, he was not allowed entrance back into the building where the rest of his friends were, and then he's gone. He's outside and disappears into thin air, as the saying goes. To this day, there has been no tangible evidence, no tangible proof of anywhere that Nicholas Adamson is to this very day. His family still destroyed by this. We talked with his brother a couple of times over the course of this past year, trying to continue to stay up to date with Nicholas's disappearance. His brother is, the last time I saw him, he's not great. He's not, as you can imagine, mentally well, nor is the rest of his family, for that matter, dealing with the disappearance and absolute lack of information, as we've talked about numerous times, and you see on TV shows and documentaries all the time. It's not necessarily the result that you're afraid of, it's the not knowing. And the not knowing, as far as Nicholas is concerned, crazy. This is his brother.
He thought he was around the St. Catherine's Boxing Club. So my mother went out.
I'll back it up a little bit, Lee.
Looking for him.
Okay.
Tell the story of his disappearance.
From there, that is the video from the Moose and Goose. The cameras, because he didn't have his own phone. He took his friend's phone out of the club to make a call to my mom, asking for money. And then the bouncers, I guess, did not let him back in to his friends. They did not let him into the bar because he was, I guess, too inebriated or too intoxicated, and they didn't let him in. From there, that is the video from the Moose and Goose. The cameras there are the last cameras to have caught him on video. I know the police have looked all through the cameras around the area, and unfortunately, they haven't been able to get him. He did make a call around 2 o'clock to my mother, asking for him to be picked up, and he believed that he thought he was around the St. Catherine's Boxing Club. Okay. So my mother went out that night looking for him for a couple hours around that area to bring him home. But we couldn't find him that night, and we assumed he might have found a friend's to crash over with or something. Since then, we notified the cops when he didn't show up Thursday night. So Friday, we notified the cops. They came and took our statements. Me and my family have been looking all around the Feulled area, a lot of wooded areas and things like that around. And me and my family and my cousins and every one of aunts have all came down, and we've been searching, and that's what we did last week, up until the point where we had to do a search party on Saturday, and a lot of the community came out to support us.
Okay. And the story never progressed with any further tangible information after that interview. The information just remained the same. The story remained the same. The searching continued, but the story remained the same. People were interviewed, the story remained the same. Nothing, unbelievably, came to light that would shed any light on the terrible disappearance of that young man whose only crime was partying with his friends and then going outside to try to get in touch with his mom, and then called to try to get a ride home at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And how many parents have had their children do that? We say call us anytime you need to get a ride home, and we'll be there. And then poof, literally poof. Again, our thoughts and feelings and the prayers, as often is said, go out to the Adamson family. I don't know where this goes, if anywhere. One of the local tragedies, if you will, was a fire that took place in, it was March, late March, was it not, Kevin? March 26th?
Yeah, March 26th, I think, a Saturday night.
Yeah, March 26th, the Hernder Family Estate Winery, which is not just a winery, it is an event place, as you can see there. They have festivals, they have the markets, and so many wonderful events that they've had in their facility at Hernder's. And as of March 26th, it went up in flames, and that's some of the result that you see there flashing across your screen. And the community, and of course the family, was in shock. This place has been operating for many, many years as a winery, as a place of celebration, as a place of festivals and gathering points and family togetherness. And it's almost unbelievable that a community staple such as this goes up in flames. But that's a shot of the horrible fire. Fire is just, there are a lot of things that are tragic, but there's something so devastating about fire. There is no reclamation from fire. Lives are ruined, histories and memories are ruined, and all you can hope is the fact that you can bet the Hernders will rebuild, and it will become probably a better version of itself than it was even before.
You know what, Lee? I actually ran into Angel at a Christmas gathering.
Did you? We talked to her
a week or so ago. Yeah, that interview was a little later. This is just the interview of really the aftermath of what happened. It took another couple months before we got Angel back up, and that was really when they reopened.
Yeah.
Just reopened in a trailer and what have you. But again, I saw Angel and talked about rebuilding. I don't want to misrepresent the date, but the plans are in place, and you know what? I think it's the light at the end of the tunnel now, where they can realize that when it's all said and done, we are going to come back bigger and possibly better.
Well,
we never would have wanted this, but
No.
given the circumstance, when we rebuild, Hernder is once again going to be a staple of the Niagara region event and winery business.
Well, as horrible as this statement sounds, I have heard people tell me before, especially with business, that, and I'm not making this up, I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything, because it is a tragedy, it was a horrible thing. But I have had people tell me where there is a downside, where there is tragedy, where there is bad news, there is also opportunity. It's hard to see at the time, but going forward, it is an opportunity to rethink how you do business. And I, over the last couple of years, have been involved with a number of businesses, and the COVID is a fine example. Not that I want to relate COVID to a terrible fire like that, but there have been you know what? We learned something about how we run our lives, how we run our businesses, how we deal with things. And we've learned some things that we're going to continue to do because it worked for us. We found a way out of the whole COVID restriction thing, and we found a way to be better even than we were before. So I like to look on the positive side of it, the sort of cloud as a silver lining side of it, and say to the Hernder family, I know you will be at some point in time even better than you were before. And a huge story that we covered here on Niagara 411 Live with Lee Sterry. On in closer to April and towards May, we interviewed, for probably the second time in the year, a phenomenal filmmaker indigenous to Niagara. Her name, Natalie Bibeau. You will remember her from some time ago, prior to 2022, of course, as having done the retrospective and the documentary about Marineland called The Walrus and the Whistleblower. Well, she also did her latest project called The Unsolved Murder of Beverly Lynn Smith. An incredibly well-reviewed documentary that took Natalie on quite a journey while she made this film, and we did talk to her about the unsolved murder of Beverly Ann Smith.
That surrounds this case.
Now, the description that comes with this, the pending release of your documentary, says it was designed to investigate a suspect in the murder of 22-year-old Beverly Lynn Smith, but only ended up raising more questions. It's done from Amazon Studios, produced in association with Muse Entertainment, and of course you directed this picture. What got you involved with this? How did this grab you, and how did you become involved with it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I had just released The Walrus and the Whistleblower not too long before that, and it was brought to me in part because of that film, because of the success of that film, but also the type of treatment that I applied to what was a thorny story. I mean, as you might remember, with some legal implications, some journalistic implications. I treated that story with a certain character-driven approach, with emotional nuances.
Right.
And Amazon and Muse wanted something similar applied to this story. So it was brought to me on the back of that. I was gripped by it immediately. I actually have a relative on my mom's side of the family that's currently in jail because of this type of sting operation. So it hit home for me right from the start. And the potential to work with such rich, eccentric characters again was just something I couldn't pass up. It seems to be my calling card.
Well, it's fascinating for those of us that watch them as well. I can understand how you would be sort of drawn in or fished in or whatever it is to these stories, and the characters are, if you didn't know they were true, you wouldn't believe them.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many twists and turns. It's stranger than fiction, this one. It's shocking, at every single turn. My son was with me, who is 13 that night. And at the end of each episode, he reached over and grabbed my knee and he said, "Mommy, what happens next? What happens next?" And I think that it really is a story that will shock people start to finish.
How many episodes are there?
There are 4 episodes.
4. Okay, can you, without being a spoiler, which we don't want to do, can you give us for those people that might not be familiar at all with the story, can you give us sort of a Coles Notes version of what happened, what this story is about?
Mm-hmm. Well, at the heart of the story is a tragic event that happened on December 9th, 1974, just outside of Oshawa in a red brick farmhouse. Somebody came into that house, shot a woman once in the back of the head. Her baby was in the room. She died. And for years, the case went cold. She was one of 4 sisters. One in particular was her twin, who has been on a quest for justice ever since that night. And it's only 3 decades later when there starts to be some serious movement in the case. An arrest is made, a controversial investigation is launched. Somebody else sort of comes into the story, and all of a sudden, this the life and the murder of this woman gets intertwined with some very big questions about what we are allowed to do in our society in the name of justice. How far should we be able to go in the name of justice and of solving crime? But also, how far would you want the police to go if it was your family member who was murdered? So these are the big questions we start to ask.
And that really is where so many stories, Kevin, that last statement from Natalie, that is where so many stories really come to an apex together. What would you do if it were your family? And that is sort of what makes social media a spin, is we have criticisms of everything and anything that go on, and so how could you possibly do that? Well, what if it was your kid? Happened last night with the special alert that went out after the killing of Constable Purcella and those 2 people that were on the loose. There were still people complaining about being disturbed by a special alert. Are you kidding me? A police officer was just shot. There are 2 armed people on the loose, and I know they didn't say what area, but I think they probably did that on purpose. But people are so insular. What are you bothering? What if it was your children?
Now,
that drives
Lee,
me crazy.
As somebody who watches a ton of documentaries.
Oh, I know, you're the documentary
I watch
king.
so many documentaries. This 3-parter on Amazon Prime by Natalie Bibo is an absolute work of genius. I wrote Natalie a big letter after I watched it, just commending her on her craft, which is filmmaking, the storytelling as well, the way she was able to weave it together. And it's a lot of documentaries, I'll say newer documentaries in the last 5 years, are somewhat scripted this way. In just when you think you've got a handle on everything, they throw you a curveball. And then it's the next episode. You watch the next episode and go, oh, ha-ha, now I know who done it.
Yeah.
And then they throw you another curveball.
Yeah.
And I won't tell you how it all ends, but if you're a documentary fiend, I mean, here is somebody from Welland. It's a GTHA story being out of Oshawa from the 70s.
Absolutely.
So it's very relatable to us living here in Niagara, and cinematically it's just done so well.
I lived in the area, and I know the area where that house is located, that this horrendous thing took place.
Now, Lee, sorry, did you want to finish your thought? Just moving along, I'm not sure whether we're going to the concert or the missing person.
Concert or the missing person. Okay, well, we were going to do Darren Werner.
Yeah, is that where we're going? Okay, Darren. Yeah.
Let's do
this is a curious one.
Yeah, on so many different levels. Now, speaking of fires, this will sort of bring the fire theme to a conclusion. It was a storage facility. That's the word I was looking for. I was going to say warehouse, but it's not. A storage facility and property in Niagara-on-the-Lake. And in this facility, there were many people that rented different spots, and they had different belongings in these locations. Some of them were expensive cars that were in storage, or all kinds of different things that were being stored in there. The place burned to the ground. Now, it's also associated with a paving company next door, is it not, Kevin? There's a paving. Anyway.
You know what? That was the Auto Shack in Thorold that
that
burned
was the
down.
Auto
That was
Shack
next to
in Thorold.
Sealands and Brothers.
Right, sorry.
This is the one in Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Yes, one in Niagara-on-the-Lake. I apologize. But anyway, Darren Werner was the owner-operator of this property. Shortly after this fire, Mr. Werner disappeared. He has not been heard of since. He has obviously been tried to be contacted by, you can imagine, the number of people that would like to talk with him. And there is still much conjecture as to whether it was a voluntary or an involuntary disappearance. And we still don't know.
There we go.
So, and I don't know what else there is to say about that story, Kevin, because it sort of began and ended there. The fire, the destruction, the disappearance, and nothing. So, then there was something of a happier note that was one of the first of its kind since COVID. And it was a great concert with some very popular acts that happened at Montebello Park, called Born and Raised, Alexis on Fire, City and Colors only Southern Ontario shows in 2022. And we had our pal Joel Carriere on, he probably wins the award, other than me, maybe, for the coolest hat on the show in 2022. Joel.
All the activations are set up. Everyone's very polite and kind and considerate. Sam Roberts is sound checking, and City and Color just sound checked. Oddly enough, it couldn't be more smooth, and obviously it's quite nice to bring a concert to back home to St. Catharines to Montebello Park on this type of scale. It's like, from the production, security, Mary Brown's, the activations. It's a bunch of people that have worked together for 15 to 20 years. So it's good to kind of come and pop this up, and everyone knows each other, and it's very communal. So I'm hoping, the rest of the city recognizes that and has a good time.
Oh, I think the majority will. Now, walk me through the logistics of how the weekend's going to unfold. Starting when, starting how, ticket prices, all that hoo-ha.
Yeah, I wish I remembered all of this. The doors are at 4:30, first band's on at 5:30, it ends at around 10:30. There's a half-hour buffer in case anyone goes over. We have parking, it's all online on bornandraised.com and in our socials. We have shuttles and free parking and free shuttles. If you can't find parking downtown, we've also listed all the parking available downtown. Obviously there's Uber and taxis and public transit. Mm-hmm. You can get tickets at the door. I don't know the exact door price. I know the tickets were about $9. I don't know with the Ticketmaster surcharge, which is always great. I don't know if they'll add that to it or not. So I'm not sure of the door price. We have, I listed all the food vendors. So we've got about vendors, and I listed all the beverages online. So we have a good skew of food and beverages and free water stations, and obviously it's Montebello, so there's a lot of trees on the outside if you need some shade. Mm-hmm. It's a really big stage. It's awesome. I was walking around the site listening to Dal sing, and I could just hear him. It's kind of fun hearing him sing songs from a record 20 years ago, written down here through the streets. It was really it's kind of a really cool moment.
Now the interesting thing about this, Kevin, is it was quite a courageous and adventurous, risky undertaking for Joel and the other organizers, because this wasn't too long after things started to open back up, and it was a resounding success. You dropped by there, did you not?
Yeah, my wife and I went down for the opening day, which he was talking about. Sam Roberts was there, and opening for City and Color, and it was really cool. You could see the genuine emotion from Dallas Green as he was talking about, he would intro a couple of songs and say, literally, I wrote this song over there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And kudos to them for bringing in relevant touring acts into a music festival atmosphere into Montebello Park. I hope it's not the last. You know what? I love seeing Our Lady Peace and Big Sugar and I Mother Earth and all those bands of the 90s. But, if you've seen them once, you've seen them 100 times. Mm-hmm. So it was really nice of them to raise the bar in the Born and Raised, and again, bring back some touring acts that are selling out venues around the world back home to St. Catharines and pay homage.
Indeed. And Also, I know we don't congratulate city councils or municipal governments too often, but kudos to them for okaying these things to go forward, because they all need approvals and permits and all of these things to put on events. And sometimes discretion is the better part of valor, as they say, and it's, oh, I don't know if we want to put on that big an event, it could turn ugly or whatever. And sometimes fear will take the city fathers and mothers away from making a decision like this. And kudos to the city of St. Catharines for allowing this to go forward, because it was a very successful event.
Programming note here, Lee, and it was an absolute smash success. We touch on the Hernder fire, and I think in our notes we were set to air the interview here of Angel, and I think it's still worthwhile. The story of Angel and what happened the night of the fire is something that people may not be familiar with.
Yeah, because her parents weren't in town; they were away, right? So here was our chat with Angel.
Oh, that was a difficult night. The entire structure that was originated back to 1867 caught fire at approximately 10 p.m. on March 26th.
Now, was this the barn?
The original barn, yes.
Okay.
Yes. It did stop at our firewall, but we lost our original barn in its entirety.
Okay.
So at 10 o'clock at night, my phone was off. I had workers literally breaking down my door to get me, and I was there in about 3 minutes.
Okay.
And I arrived, and you could not see from the smoke. You could not see the hand in front of you. I managed to get inside the building to go save my bird, and I got stopped about halfway, and my husband pulled me out. So we got back outside, we drove around, and that's when I literally saw the flames. And it started in the second story of the Victoria room in a bridal suite. There was really nothing in that room that could have caused this. And it traveled south. It knocked out the great big stone stained glass window. And then fire department had showed up after that point, and they were battling a battle that was just too big.
And there are still outstanding conversations being held, but it's safe for me to say, I hope, that you were informed that there was no foul play expected. Is that correct?
That is correct. We were in the building up until 7:30 that evening. We had a retirement party for Penny, which has been my coordinator for 20 years.
Nice.
We shut it up. I locked it, just like I did for the last 30 years. And in 2.5 hours, we don't know what happened, but there was no foul play.
Well, that at least has to make you feel a little bit, or give you some peace of mind that there was nothing intentional behind this.
Yes, but the hurt is still the same.
Yeah, of course. Okay, now let's flash forward to today. What have you done to restore, or have you done anything to restore where you are? What's happening now? Bring us up to date with Hernder Estate Winery.
So we have cleaned up the site. It was unbelievable, the amount of stuff that was in this 5-story barn. We lost our offices, our accounting office. We lost our cold storage room that had all the ice wine. We lost the retail store, 2 banquet facilities, and 3 floors of stuff.
Wow.
So there was nothing left. Even my safe wasn't safe. Everything is gone. All my backup. We have literally lost every piece of everything.
So that meant all of your plans and calendars and things with your upcoming events and everything gone?
Yes. I did have a room in the back that we use for inside ceremonies. I am trying to work with the city and fire department on getting that up because I still have 8 weddings this year that do not want to go anywhere else. So it's going to be in the Luna Lounge. We did our first event 2 weeks ago with a special occasion permit from the couple.
Yeah.
And last weekend we opened our retail store. So
Oh, congratulations. Kevin, let's make a note to self on this one, that in the new year, we get yet another update from Angel on what's going on for their new year of 2023, because when springtime hits, they normally have all sorts of things happening there, and it'll be interesting to see how much progress they've made in re-energizing their business. So let's do that. I can't think of a business other than perhaps Mr. Werner's, that we talked about before, that was more impacted by fire over the past year than the Hernder fire. And so devastating. And she said, as I mentioned before we brought on that interview, her parents were vacationing or staying in, I think it was Florida. They were down south somewhere. So can you imagine making that telephone call? Whoa, not a fun thing at all. And when something has been in your family, it's a tragedy no matter what business or what structure or anything happens to be destroyed. But when there's something that is as close to the emotional well-being of your entire family and generations of your family like that, it must be absolutely surreal that something like that would happen. Like, you wouldn't be able to believe it at first.
She said she locked it up the same way she's been doing for 30 years, and 2.5 hours later it was all gone.
Yeah.
Right,
So when we talked to her,
imagine.
and I know the fire marshal would have been investigated. So maybe they were not able to find. I mean, there are a lot of things around wineries, et cetera, that can kind of self-combust because of there's chemicals, and all kinds of things.
A wrinkle to that, Lee, is there was a vendor fair going on that weekend.
Right.
So there were a lot of other people in the building that were leaving things there overnight.
Right.
Which creates a ton of variables. My wife was actually there earlier that day. She was there at about 4 p.m, and from where we live, I mean, we're just a stone's throw from Hernder.
That's right, you are, yeah.
And we could see it. It was lighting up the night sky.
Right.
I could see it over the trees and go, oh my God. I can basically see it from here. And it was, but best of luck to Angel and the entire Hernder family. I know they will build and be back bigger and stronger than ever.
I believe it.
Moving along, I guess we got a new head of the state or head of the monarchy or whatever you want to call it.
We have a new head of state for Canada and the rest of the so-called Commonwealth. And in spite of what a lot of people might believe, our Prime Minister is not the head of state for Canada, as is the President of the United States, the head of state for the United States. Our head of state is the monarch holding the throne in England, the United Kingdom. And massive change this year as King Charles, a lot of us often wondered if he would ever ascend to the throne, considering the backstory of the royal family over the last few years. But indeed, he did. And here we take you back to September the 9th and King Charles III. Here's King Charles III.
In 1947, on her 21st birthday, she pledged in a broadcast from Cape Town to the Commonwealth to devote her life, whether it be short or long, to the service of her people. That was more than a promise. It was a profound personal commitment which defined her whole life. She made sacrifices for duty. Her dedication and devotion for sovereign never wavered through times of change and progress, through times of joy and celebration, and through times of sadness and loss. In her life of service, we saw that abiding love of tradition, together with that fearless embrace of progress, which makes us great as nations. The affection, admiration, and respect she inspired became the hallmark of her reign. And, as every member of my family can testify, she combined these qualities with warmth, humor, and an unerring ability always to see the best in people. I pay tribute to my mother's memory, and I honor her life of service. I know that her death brings great sadness to so many of us, and I share that sense of loss beyond measure with you all. When the Queen came to the throne, Britain and the world were still coping with the privations and aftermath of the Second World War, and still living by the conventions of earlier times. In the course of the last 70 years, we have seen our society become one of many cultures and many faiths. The institutions of the state have changed in turn. But through all changes and challenges, our nation and the wider family of realms, of whose talents, traditions, and achievements I am so inexpressibly proud, have prospered and flourished. Our values have remained and must remain constant. The role and the duties of monarchy also remain, as does the sovereign's particular relationship and responsibility towards the Church of England, the church in which my own faith is so deeply rooted. In that faith and the values it inspires, I have been brought up to cherish a sense of duty to others, and to hold in the greatest respect the precious traditions, freedoms, and responsibilities of our unique history and our system of parliamentary government.
Okay, so there you go. It's going to be, according to King Chuck III, it will be more of the same as far as process is concerned. However, since then, there have been little dribs and drabs of information come out that indicate there is a very, very, very gradual shift in focus, and it'll be interesting, at least for some. A lot of people just don't give a damn, and that's fine. I mean, the relevance of the monarchy has been debated for years, and it'll continue to be debated. But it will still be on the world stage an interesting thing to see how things develop. And as a matter of fact, my wife and I were in England the day that Queen Elizabeth died. And no, it wasn't us. It was just a coincidence. We were actually in Greenwich. We were staying at a hotel in Greenwich, which was near some family that we have there. And we were taking an Uber from Greenwich to Heathrow Airport. And as the crow flies, you can be there like that. As the car drives, it took us forever. And that was prior to the Queen's passing. So you have to go from Greenwich through London to Greenwich is still technically in London, but anyway, that's a moot point. Then out to Heathrow Airport, and we were in the air when Queen Elizabeth passed away. So imagine our surprise flying out of London in the afternoon and then landing in Toronto, and the Queen has died. It's kind of a surreal experience as well.
Yeah, it's funny, Lee. You bring back a memory that I had, which was just as surreal, although a little more morose. If you remember the the big mass shooting in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah,
From, I think
at
it
the
was-
country music concert.
My wife and I flew out of Vegas 2 hours before that
Yes,
shooting.
you
So when
mentioned
we
that.
landed, we went, "What? Are you kidding me?" And I actually took an eerie photo out the plane window of the Strip that showed that venue just hours before the shooting. It was, wow.
A couple of more localized events. We had I think maybe only the second one or the first one in Canada of the diverging diamond traffic flow system installed at Glendale and the Queen Elizabeth Highway, and there it is.
Oh, sorry. But here's a video kind of with some explanation.
Yeah.
Located at QEW and Glendale Avenue interchange. DGI. In this video, we will walk through the operation of this type of interchange. A diverging diamond interchange has a number of benefits, including increasing safety through a reduction in the number of conflict points, reducing the possibility of collisions, maintaining efficient traffic.
Why do they have to use the boring guy voice?
I still don't get it. Yeah, have somebody
space
excited.
more efficiently while still facilitating large volumes of traffic.
Boy, that's like watching paint dry, isn't it?
Right. Okay.
There's your diamond. Yeah, there's the diamond right there.
These highlighted paths show how traffic traveling on the QEW is able to access north and
All right, that's
southbound
enough.
Glendale
Kev,
Avenue
please, that's enough.
via the
Please,
off-ramps.
make it stop.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's terrible. But the thing that bugs me about this one is the fact that they made this big announcement that it was going to be open. The Glendale accesses and the diverging diamond thing and all the rest of it. It's opening on, I don't know, Wednesday the whatever. But the most heavily used exit from the Queen Elizabeth Highway is from St. Catharines through to Niagara Falls to get off to Glendale to go to that outlet mall or to go to Niagara College. And it was weeks, I tell you, before that opened. Why do they say something's going to be open until it's fully open? But anyway, finally, as Michelangelo said about the roof of the Sistine Chapel, it is finished.
And then yesterday, Lee, they had to block it off.
Well, yeah.
Or because there was too much traffic. I mean, we're just so motivated by commercialism that on Boxing Day, the traffic was backing up onto the QEW, and they actually had to close that exit.
And that actually brings us to a divergent, speaking of diverging, story which will kind of take us to the end of our retrospective and the year that was Niagara 411 Live, as we could not leave this program without going to the 3 or 4 day storm that went raging through a lot of places other than Niagara, but Niagara in particular, Fort Erie and Ridgeway and Stevensville and Port Colborne, Crystal Beach, and those snow belt areas that always get hammered when these kinds of systems come up through New York State. And Niagara Falls and St. Catharines got off very, very lightly, but those areas like Fort, people were out without power. My sister was in Ridgeway without power for 4 days. That can't be nice. And some of the pictures that we see of the snow and the ice and some of the, like there were houses covered along the Lake Erie shoreline and Crystal Beach in ice. It looked like some sort of surreal, I've used that word again a couple times today, sort of end of like Armageddon Day, where everything is just sort of covered and waiting to die. There's all the ice houses along Lake Erie there. And there were some that were even more coated than that, and it's taken so many people so much time to dig out some 15-foot drifts, and it would be totally errant if I did not mention those people that had to be the power first responders, all of the electricity support people and the technicians that had to go out. I mean, we can understand how people would be frustrated by being without power, but Kevin, not only were the winds at gale force, look at that. That's just like coming right off the lake and almost instantly freezing on the side of buildings. And as I was saying, not only was the wind damaging, the snow was piling up in those snow belt areas to the point where not only couldn't the electrical workers handle it because of the wind, they couldn't even get to the areas that needed to be dealt with because they were inaccessible because of the snow and the drifting. And when you combine wind with snow, heavy snow, that's what you get. Just an incredible way to spend Christmas, Kevin. And I'm sure a lot of family gatherings were upset and destroyed because of that.
Ours were. My sister-in-law's parents had no power. They're out in like kind of Stevensville area.
Yeah.
They had no power until I think 7 o'clock on Boxing Day.
Mm-hmm.
So that completely changed all of our plans because they were supposed to host one of the nights and obviously they couldn't.
Yeah, so the holiday season of 2022 will be one long remembered. There were people equating it to the blizzard of 77, and in some cases it was that or even more severe in some locales. So that, I think, Kevin, just about does it for the year that was Niagara 411 Live.
Sets us up for a great 2023.
Indeed.
Lee, to take us out, Laurel and Hully. They've been featured before on the program. I actually got introduced to them when we worked a wedding together during COVID. They're a great little duet. If you look them up, they've got a Christmas concert coming up in support, I think, of the Grantham Lions Club, and they're headlining. Okay. But they did a Christmas song just a couple of weeks ago and put a video together for this Christmas with Laurel and Hully.
Gales Gas, Virgin Insurance Group, WeeStream, Fiddler's Poorhouse, thank you so much for being a part of the year that was Niagara 411 Live, and we'll do it again in a safe and happy 2023, I hope. Have yourselves a great new year. Laurel and Hully are going to play us off the stage. Thank you, Kevin.
Shake a hand,